Is it on? Screen. It's green now. Do you hear me? Okay. But it's quite exciting that Sister White said this, that now American Heart Association says it, European Cardiology Society says it, the World Health Organization says it, that lifestyle is the best preventive there is of cardiovascular disease, heart attack and strokes. That's pretty good. You know, it's been hard for us as Americans, doctors, to believe that. Now we have it scientifically. I can go into public school system, teach the Adventist health message from science. What are the 7 risk factors? Alcohol. I talked about that this morning, remember? Max Griswold did the big study. Tobacco. 1964, Surgeon General came out against it. Next one was inactivity. Your heart attack risk goes up with the longer time you sit on a chair. Now, I had a lady working for me. She was kind of big. I mean, big. She did this for a living, for advertising purposes. Helped me with these PowerPoint graphics. Very good. I said to her one day, Kathy, I must talk to you about your weight. Her face dropped. I said, do you want the good news first or the bad news first? I said, I'm preventive medicine. I got to talk to you. And she said, give me the bad news first. Okay? Bad news is, for every disease we know, it increases your chance of dying if you're overweight. But now the good news. If you're very big, and she was, and you exercise every day, you will live longer than the lady who's normal in weight who doesn't exercise. You got that? A man who smokes, has high blood pressure, high cholesterol, but exercises every day, will live longer than the man who doesn't have any of those problems, who doesn't exercise. The only advantage of being lean is if you exercise. Okay? So, alcohol, smoking, inactivity. Next one they said, overweight. Overweight.
You're picking on me, Don.
So that was the next problem. And it's true, overweight increases the risk of dying. Okay? The next thing they said was less meat and less sugar. Now I should tell you about sugar. Sister White said, be careful of getting too much sugar. At that time, we were getting 10 teaspoons a day. Heart Association now says it increases heart attack risk. And they have recommended no more than 9 teaspoons a day of sugar for men and 6 for women. That's almost exactly what Sister White said. See? When we were doing 10, she said, be careful. Okay? Now, about the meat. Americans like meat. If everybody in the world ate as much meat as Americans do, we'd have only enough food to go around for a third of the population. We don't have that much meat. See? But the meat is a problem. Everybody likes meat in this country. And they rebelled against the Heart Association's recommendation. So they changed it. They said, eat more fruits and vegetables. They meant no less meat. But they didn't say it. Now, they added another recommendation. Let's see. I'll tell you, Dana, you have to help me. It's in my handbag. Out in the car. There's a beautiful colored charts. I want them all to have.
I'll bring the handbag.
Okay. It's all in one section there in the handbag. Now, I want you to see this, where the fat's coming from. I have it colored. It's a beautiful chart. And you got to see this chart so you understand it quite clearly. Okay? Let's wait a minute until he comes back with it.
I have a question. I didn't pay attention. What were the good news for fat people?
What's that?
What were the good news for fat people?
If they exercise, they will live longer than the normal weight people who don't exercise.
What about
That's the good news. Exercise is important.
what about that we will not get osteoporosis?
Exercise
No.
helps.
Fat people will not get osteoporosis like skinny people.
Yeah. Estrogens help. Anyway, exercise is extremely important. When I was 51, I quit my job at Loma Linda, teaching nutrition, moved out in the country. My wife called it a school of death, not a school of health. I was working so hard. You see, the education system is wrong. They give you 1/4 credit if you do field work, spending 4 hours with students. If you give a lecture, you get 1 full credit, not just quarter. That's not right. Those kids that I took out to Palm Springs to the weight control program learned more than to give me an hour lecture on it. You know? But teaching, it looked like I wasn't doing anything. I was doing much more than the people who were just giving me lectures and not doing field work. Now, here we come with my little bag. So, let's get one of these compartments, and one side to the other. That's not it, it's the other side.
This one?
No, the other side. I think, yeah, that's it.
This one?
Yeah.
I'm playing the secretary's role. Maybe I can go travel with him.
Where is it?
Are you looking
That's not it.
for the charts?
It's a chart. That's not it.
Not this one.
No. Let's open another one.
How many copies do you have?
There's another pocket on this side.
That's not it.
Must be on the outside.
Where is it? There's a whole battery of them.
The outside pocket.
This one? Let's see if there's anything in that one.
Nothing.
It seems like you
That's
didn't
just,
have a secretary.
that's a shame. That's a shame.
Maybe you grabbed the wrong.
Here they are, right here. Look here.
Oh, okay.
Here they are, right here. You got to have these. Pass those around. Now, the Heart Association said you should have no more than 5 to 6% of your calories from saturated fat. That's why I'm handing you this chart. The red is the saturated fat. The longest line in the red is what food? Fortunately, we don't grow coconuts. But I'll tell you, if you're in Fiji, the islands that use the most coconut have more heart attacks. More. Because they're using coconut oil. That's about the major oil they use in Fiji. And they have lots of diabetes. They have a lot of heart attacks. Now, these 7 risk factors I'm talking about lowers the risk of diabetes 88%. So, avoid the coconut oil. Now, that doesn't mean you can't ever cook your rice with coconut milk. But in general, if you're on a place where the only oil you use is the coconut oil, that's bad. Okay?
What about olive oil?
Well, I'll come into olive oil. The other red thing is butter. Did you know, folks, that the Spirit of Prophecy, Ellen White, told us not to use butter? Many years ago. She's been dead since 1915. We were told years ago. Did you know the Heart Association says don't use butter? Now, milk has butter fat. That's why the Heart Association says if you use milk, you should drink milk only with 1% or less fat. Okay? It's the fat in the milk. What about cheese? That's fat. Now we're talking about pizza. Now we're talking about pizza. It's a real problem. See, the cheese. Okay, now what's above that? Palm oil. That's okay. I know it. It's palm oil, see? Fortunately, we don't grow that here. That's grown in Malaysia. But it's shipped here. You read the labels on many of your products you buy in the store, it says palm oil. We're not supposed to use palm oil. Okay, and what's above that? Lard. You might as well put bacon with it too. But the pig fat, the lard, we aren't supposed to use. And what's above that one? Cottonseed. We have cottonseed oil here, but don't eat it. Don't use it for food. Okay? And above that, from there on up is okay. Peanut oil. Chinese like peanut oil in their cookie. You see, every fat you have has three kinds of fatty acids. Saturated fat, monounsaturated fat, and polyunsaturated fat. They have all three. But if it's more than half of one of them, that's what they call it to be, see? So the monounsaturated fat is the yellow line. We used to think that neither raised nor lower blood cholesterol. Now we know it lowers it. They fed people a whole avocado, which is the yellow line, oleic acid, a whole avocado every day for 6 months. They didn't gain weight. Their cholesterol didn't go up. It works fine. Avocado is a good fat. It has more fiber in it than any other fruit, by the way. Okay, so the yellow line is good. Now the next two are the blue and the green lines. These are essential fatty acids. By essential, I mean you have to have them to live. Your body doesn't make these. It makes the others, but it doesn't make these. Now, the blue is linoleic acid, omega-6, okay? Now, what's omega-6 mean? That means from the start of the formula, 6 carbons before you come to the first double bond. That's what that means, okay? It does so much good at lowering blood cholesterol. The Heart Association says you should have up to 10% of your calories from that fatty acid. It's good. It's easily found. You see, the blue line is in a lot of places, a lot of oils. Okay? If I didn't know anything about oils, I'd probably pick number 1, canola. It's the smallest amount of saturated fat. Okay? But I can give you reasons for others that are good. For example, corn oil is good because it has plant sterols, stigmasterol, cytosterol, that competes with cholesterol for absorption. More of that you have, less cholesterol gets absorbed. Okay? Now, the ratio between the omega-3 and omega-6, omega-3 is the green one. You don't find that green very often. It's only in a few things. What is it? Flaxseed and chia seed has it. Okay? But even canola, the top one, what is that, 11%? 11. It's pretty high. So that's pretty good. But if you look at all the fatty acids, the ratio of the one to the other, the one which is the best is soy oil. So I could go around and explain why different ones are good for different reasons, you know. But this is interesting to know which fatty acids are good and which ones are not good. It's the bottom 5 you forget about. That's the animal fat. And I should have another one there. I didn't put in chocolate. Chocolate. Now, nobody likes to hear that one. But chocolate has 2 fatty acids. One of them is stearic acid, 20 carbons. That doesn't raise blood cholesterol. But it has another one that does raise blood cholesterol. See? So chocolate isn't the best. Now, the Hershey bar, when this stuff first came out, Hershey bar had to do something for their advertising. They said the Hershey bar did not have much saturated fat per serving. 1/7 of the bar is a serving. That means it takes a week to eat that Hershey bar. Who spends a week a little bit every day, 7 days, then it doesn't have much saturated fat. That's crazy. But that's what they did and advertised to begin with when it first came out. Okay, but this you need to know about fatty acids. Okay. Now, back to these major factors. They added 2 others, high blood pressure and high serum cholesterol. Okay. Since we've lowered our smoking so well, only 11% of the adults in the U.S. still smoke. In California, where the people are a little more smarter live, it's only 9%. It's only 9% here. So we've knocked our heart attack rate down because our smoking went down. I go to these other countries, 40% of the men smoking. It's terrible. It's terrible. They need to do something real fast. We raised the taxes. In China, K.K. Kong, the first finance minister, married to the oldest Song daughter, Ao Ling, he balanced the budget nationally by putting a 25-cent per package tax or something like that on the cigarettes. We said tax it. Put the taxes real high, both tobacco and alcohol. And then you have laws. You can only smoke here, only drink here, and gradually increase the places where you can't do it. That's where we got our smoking rate down so well, okay? Now, I'm suggesting overseas where it's a big problem that they do it faster. Don't allow any person to receive a diploma on anything if he's still smoking, because he hasn't learned anything yet. I say they should pass a law like this so that they get that smoking down fast. But we need to do something overseas. I was in Slovakia, talked to the school system, all the kids. We got kids, we say, sign up here if you're interested in the stop smoking class. They wouldn't even pass the sheet around and let people put their name on it. If the head of the class, the president, is smoking, at the recess they all go out and smoke. They don't want to stop smoking. It's very difficult. It really is very difficult. Now, since we dropped the smoking so well, the cholesterol level again, 24 million Americans are taking statin pills. All the studies were done mostly on men. Few women got into some of them. Well, I saw an Adventist Canadian doctor in San Francisco at one of these cholesterol clinics putting everybody on statins. I said, are you putting women on statins just like men? Yes. They're the same. Now, folks, I'm a doctor. I know there's a difference between men and women. I'm a doctor, I know. But they were trying to say they were the same. They are not the same. So they did the studies, 3 studies on women. 2 of the studies showed if you take the statins, you have your increased risk of dying compared to the people who don't take the statins. I don't believe women should be put on statins. Now, the next thing was about the men. Older men do better on higher blood cholesterol levels. That goes against our theory. So we say for men, officially, for men 75 and older, regardless of what their cholesterol level is, they should not be put on statins. A lot of the doctors don't know that. So the statin medicine, they checked on longevity. For 93% of the people taking them, they don't live any longer. It doesn't help them one bit in any other way either. It helps them 7%. They live 8.25 years longer because they had heart disease. Our problem is we've been going by cholesterol level as who needs the statins. And that doesn't tell us who has heart disease. We need a better indicator of who needs it and who doesn't. See, for 7%, it really helped. 93%, it didn't help. Now, have you heard of this group that looks over all the studies and tells you what's good and what's bad? What's the name of that group now? Anyway, that group, they fired the man in the group who was most persistent on not letting the pharmaceutical companies influence them. Several other members of the board dropped out at the same time because of that. Then they had 15 people get together to decide how low our cholesterol should be. 8 of the 15 were getting remuneration from the company that makes the pill to lower your cholesterol. That's not cricket. That's not right. That's not right. And so they agreed it should be down to 100. It doesn't need to be down to 100. That's ridiculous. But your LDL cholesterol is the bad kind. You go see your doctor. How's my cholesterol level, doctor? Okay, you're okay. Don't worry about it. It's not enough. You need to know what your LDL cholesterol is, number-wise. Now, why? There's 2 types of LDL. One is of the particles. One is the large, light, buoyant type. If you have a lot of that, you have only twice the risk of heart attack. If you have the small, dense type, like the diabetic has, you have 7 times the risk of a heart attack. We used to measure it. We don't anymore. Because if we know what your triglycerides are, we know what your LDL cholesterol particles are. If we're at the high normal triglyceride level, 90% of the LDL particles are the bad kind, which increase the heart attack risk 7-fold. If it's way down low, the triglycerides, then you have the large buoyant type, less dangerous type. Okay? Your total cholesterol is made up of HDL cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, and VLD cholesterol, very low density cholesterol. How do you find out what the VLDL is? You take your triglycerides, divide them by 5, that's how much you have, cholesterol you have in the VLDL. So we have a way to figure it out. HDL, Dr. Ko, Chinese-Canadian doctor, did a study of 600,000 Canadians. HDL had nothing to do with heart disease whatsoever. We used to think it was very important. Now we know it is not important. So much for the new thing, that lifestyle is the preferred way to get people to lower their heart attack and stroke risk. Yes?
So, Dr. Scharffenberg, so do you say that HDL has nothing to do with the health of the heart?
As far as we know, it has nothing to do with it.
So if the value is small or low, it doesn't matter?
It doesn't seem to make any difference.
Okay.
Women have higher levels than men, but since Dr. Ko did this Canadian study, 600,000 people, that's when they changed their view. Now, Bill Costelli, my buddy, he was the one that pushed HDL cholesterol as important. He admits that it's not important now. We used to think exercise more to get that up where it should be. Okay?
We have some people from Clear Lake,
Okay.
and they came.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, they
They need the information too.
had already the cholesterol level high.
What should our numbers be with our cholesterol? triglycerides I had about 4 months ago. It was really high.
Yes. Oh, I can tell that by the size.
But I lowered it.
I know it's going to be high.
But I've lowered it to a certain amount. The doctor was surprised how quick
Yeah.
I did it with my exercise.
Now, the LDL cholesterol is what kills the men mostly. That's too many steaks. But the triglyceride is what kills the women with heart disease. It means overweight. Okay? So you don't let your doctor tell you it doesn't matter, you're okay. Find out the numbers of LDL cholesterol and the triglyceride. You need to know the numbers.
So if the numbers are below 100 or 200, is that good? That's what I'm trying to get, where my numbers are below 100.
What you need to do is get your belt here to be not more than 35 to 40 inches.
Getting there.
This is the thing that works. Better than BMI. BMI is okay for groups, but individually, your waist circumference is more important. See? Now, how do you tell if you're overweight? You get on the scales. If the needle goes out of sight, you're too fat. Okay? Now, the second way is you lay down on the floor, put a board between your chest and your abdomen. If it goes up towards the abdomen, you're too fat. Third way is you can pinch right here between your hips and your rib cage. If it's more than 2 inches, it's too fat. Okay? So we're learning how to do this now properly to figure out how much you should weigh. Yes?
Are there people that have a genetic predisposition for higher cholesterol, and they will be okay with a high cholesterol level?
They may not be. They may not be. There's some people genetically have a high triglyceride level too, and they may be in trouble because of it. We might have to put them on some medicines. Okay? But this whole cardiovascular disease, now they say the main thing is lifestyle. But here's the problem. A lady comes in to see the doctor. She's heavy, overweight. And the doctor writes out a prescription. You will now exercise an hour every day. She gives it to the lady. She comes back in a month. She's a little heavier than she was. The doctor says, did you follow the prescription? No. Now, after he has 100 patients going through his office like that, he stops even trying to educate them. He's given up. The next breakthrough in healthcare has to come in getting people to do what we know they should do, what even they know they should do. Huh? So it's a little hard.
If somebody goes in and they have to get a stent in the heart,
Then they
have
know.
blockage, and then they're not supposed to eat any more meat after that or other things.
Yeah.
And they don't pay anything. A new lease on life.
Yeah.
Okay. Need what I want now. It's all fixed.
Another problem we have, a lot of doctors are practicing in groups. 20 doctors in a group. The leader calls the group together and say, fellas, you got to see a new patient every 10 minutes or we're not going to make any money on this thing. You can't educate anybody on anything in 10 minutes. It doesn't work. So a lot of the doctors are giving up on the education part because it either doesn't work to start with, they don't have time enough to do it. It's been a real problem. And people don't do it, they don't want to do it. So it's a big problem. But our next big breakthrough in healthcare is going to be getting people to decide that they want to do what they should do. To me, that's where religion comes in. We should, on a religious basis, show them this is important. Any questions? Now, I should tell you a little about coffee. I was over in the Czech Republic, and I was in this town where they had two schools of universities. One was on public health. There was an Adventist boy in one of these schools, and his friend told him he was going to ask me about coffee. So I had to get ready with an answer. And he asked it, what about coffee? Well, Harvard just came out with a report, the latest report. Here's what it said. No medical group ever is ordering coffee for anybody. There's no reason to order coffee for anybody. I say another reason. The group that lives the longest doesn't drink coffee and recommends nobody drink it. That's Adventist total vegetarians. Okay. Third reason. All the doctors agree that no pregnant woman should have any drug whatsoever during pregnancy. Coffee is a drug. They shouldn't have it. Now, I have other reasons I can give. For example, nitrosamine. 1 cup of coffee increases this stuff about tenfold compared to a cup of water. That's a carcinogenic agent, okay? Nitrosamines. So that's another reason. Let me give you another reason. I was in Bangladesh. We have a program there helping women. This gal had lost 4 babies, and she was pregnant now again, anemic again. She says, what should I do? I says, lady, stop drinking all that coffee. For every cup of coffee, decreases your iron absorption by 50%. A cup of tea by 60%. A cup of milk, because of the calcium, by 50%. If you have a food high in vitamin C, it increases the absorption of the iron 100%. Simple little things we can tell people to do. But can you get a woman over in Bangladesh to stop drinking her coffee? See the problem we have? It's difficult to do. Now, since we've lowered our smoking, hypertension is now the leading cause of heart disease. You should know, with animal studies, if we give them potassium, no amount of sodium will hurt them. That means more fruits and vegetables, less meat. If we give them more linoleic acid, that line you saw, the blue line, more linoleic acid, the salt doesn't hurt them. They don't get hypertension. If they have only 12 grams of fiber a day compared to 24 grams, they will have 57% higher risk of hypertension. We need fiber in our diet. Now, the vegetarians in Europe just don't want to kill animals, whereas we as Adventists want to have better health. So when they're hungry, they'll put a piece of white bread in the toaster to get some toast. We will take a piece of whole wheat bread and put it in the toaster. We're getting much more fiber than they do because we're doing it for health. See, we're getting much more vitamin C than they get. Yes?
Do you advocate any particular type of diet? I thought I saw an interview where you said you were a vegetarian since birth.
I do push the vegetarian diet.
Okay. Do you supplement anything, any kind of vitamin supplement?
Let me tell you about it. For older people, there's 2 nutrients you have to get that you aren't getting. You can't get enough. That's, you got to get enough vitamin D, you got to get enough B12. Okay? Even if you're taking in meat when you get older, you might need B12. It's not just vegetarians that look at it. So get B12 because I have to. My B12 level is low. Now, how do you tell it's low? You have to do a blood test, methylmalonic acid blood test. That tells you biologically if you're deficient. You can't go by blood level. You have to do the methylmalonic acid test. My 2 doctors that I've had didn't know that. I knew more about the B12 than they did. Yes.
So do you get your B12 through spinach and kale, or do you?
No, it's not in spinach and kale unless you had some animal defecate on it.
So how do you get your B12 besides taking pills?
Milk and eggs.
But if you're vegan,
If you're a vegan, you take the pill. Okay? That's the problem. That's the problem. Okay? Now, it's interesting. It's stored in our liver. So if you don't drink milk and eggs, a doctor over in England did the study. If you don't have any milk or egg, 3 years goes by, 1/3 of the people are deficient, the other 2/3 are not. 6 years go by, maybe 2/3 are deficient, the other third is not. They're using it from the stored liver. You see? Now, why didn't Adam and Eve have to have it? They made it in their intestines. We can make a teeny bit in our ileum, the third part of the small intestine, but we don't make enough. I think Adam and Eve, with a good intestinal tract, made it. And they didn't need the pills. See? But we don't make it, so we're in trouble. Now, you can take foods that have been fortified with B12, but there's a limit as to how much you can absorb at one meal. You might not get enough. Therefore, we use the other method. If you have, what do they call it? Passive diffusion. It's absorbed with passive diffusion. 1% is absorbed. So if you take a pill, 500 microgram pill, 1% of it is fine. Plenty with a pill, a big pill. You'll absorb 5 micrograms out of the 500 milligram tablet. So that's the way to do. Our problem is overseas, Madagascar. Poor people, can you buy vitamin B12 tablets? It's expensive, you know, so that's a problem. We have to say, use the milk and eggs for a time. You may need that for a time. But the one who wants to teach them is a vegan. He doesn't want to tell them to use milk or eggs. But that's better than meat. Much better than meat. Yes?
So how much vitamin B12 do you take?
What's that?
How much do you take?
I take 1,000 microgram tablet and every day. So that means I would get 10 by passive diffusion. And older people, even if I use milk or eggs, I'm still going to have trouble. Same with vitamin D. When you get older, you can't absorb it. You see, that D has to hit the cholesterol in your skin, change the form, goes to the liver, changes form, goes to the kidneys, changes form, and it comes out what we call a vitamin. It's a hormone, really. We call it vitamin D, see. So when you're older, all these things are working at half speed. So it doesn't do a very good job. So the vitamin D and stuff is important when you're a young person.
I have a question. If you work outside and you're in the sun all the time, then do you still need to supplement the vitamin D?
If you have black skin, you won't absorb it. If you're too fat, you won't absorb it. If you get old in age, you won't absorb it. So we got problems even with the best. Any other questions you have? That's the start on the questions.
what's the best way to I've been eating a lot of raw vegetables. And I got
All
off
right.
sugar.
You know, weight control is important.
Yeah.
Weight control is important. Ellen White suggested 2 meals a day. Nothing after 2 o'clock is good idea for weight control. See, I would say that's one of the best. Eat regularly, but only 2 meals a day. Yeah, that's a good thing to do. Yes.
What form of vitamin B12? Because you know there's like cyanocobalamin, methylcobalamin, and all these other types.
It's got the, either one of those two. It's got to have that. There's biologically inactive B12. The label might say it has B12 in it, but it might not be active. You got to get that methyl cyanocobalamin thing. Read the label and see if it has it in order for it to be good. Nutritional yeast, they fortified it with B12. B12 added to gluten products, cooked to high thing, have been shown not to be any use at all in the gluten steaks.
Can you talk more about chocolate? How bad is chocolate or how?
I didn't get it. Oh, chocolate?
Yeah, tell us about the benefits of chocolate.
How good it is.
Sugar's a problem. Sugar is the biggest problem. But besides, you have the caffeine, a little bit. But you have saturated fat also. So it's not the best of foods. People like it because they like it.
You mean they put sugar in chocolate?
What's that?
You put sugar in chocolate?
They put sugar in chocolate, yeah. I went to Mauritius, the island of Mauritius, with Story Proctor. And the president of the conference met us at the airport and drove us to where we started a cooking school, how to cook vegetarian. And Story had him stop at a market along the way. On the way, he told us, these people are very poor. They have to eat meat because they're very poor. We got to the place to start the talks on how to cook and so on. And Story Proctor got up to the blackboard, and the conference president's wife and daughter were in the audience. And he pointed out that if you're poor, you have to eat plant foods. You get more nutrition for the dollar than if you eat animal foods. Now, he said, if you want to eat meat, do so, but don't say it's because you have to. It's because you like it. Because if you're on a poor, have low income, then you should buy the foods that are cheaper. The best buys for the dollar are potatoes, nutritionally, and grains. They're equal. Then comes beans and peanuts, then green leafy vegetables. The poorest buy for the dollar is sugar. The next above that was the fish and meat group. Not that there was not good nutrition in meat and fish, but it's terribly expensive for the dollar, see? And we need to let people know that's been done. Studies been done in many countries now. That study's been done. It was done in Romania by one of our Romanian doctors. He gave the report when I was there sitting and listening to it. He kept looking at me because he knew we'd been doing those studies, and he did it the same way, showed the same thing, every country, same way. That the plant foods give you more vitamins and minerals for the dollar than the animal foods.
And if you grow your own garden,
Yeah.
Question on, I don't know if you spoke about fried oils.
Which oil?
Fried oil.
Palm oil?
No, in general, if you fry, whatever you fry, potatoes.
Okay, what does Sister White tell us? Sister White tells us fried potatoes are not good because of the grease used. What does she mean by grease? Animal fat. Because it's animal fat. Now, it's not vegetable fat. That's the problem. It's the animal fat. If it's not animal fat, we don't have as big a problem. But we do have this problem. If you superheat it, you form carcinogenic agents. If you use, this deep fat frying, you're using the same oil over and over again. That's bad.
McDonald's doesn't think that.
What's that? McDonald's doesn't say that. No, they don't tell you that. but if you're using deep fat stuff, that's not good because they use the oil over and over again. And if you eat something that's fried in the stuff, if you take the oil to the, burning point, where it smokes, smoking point, you're breaking it down. You're producing carcinogenic agent. That's not good. But usually we don't, in the kitchen, don't do it. Now, in the kitchen, you are not hydrogenating. It takes nickel or something, agent, to make that change to a hydrogenated thing and get trans fatty acids. We don't do that in the kitchen because we don't have that nickel or that stuff agent to make that change. So in your home kitchen, you aren't hydrogenating. But if you get it to a high burning point, high smoking point, you can form carcinogenic agents.
What do you think about nuts? Different types of nuts, because,
Nuts,
with trying to lose weight, you don't want to eat too many oils
yeah.
in the nuts. I do eat a lot of nuts in my cereal in the morning.
Nuts in general are healthful foods. See, they are healthful foods, nuts. Except the coconut is a little problem.
What about almond milk? Processed almond milk?
Now, all these milk substitutes are pretty good. They have really enriched them so they have as much calcium as regular milk. Per cup, 300 milligrams. Most of them that have done that. And so that's okay, that's good. There's something in cow's milk that's good for the bones that you don't find in any artificial milk.
I haven't drank any milk in about 25 years.
Well, now, back to weight control. Diabetes, for example. Diabetes. If you exercise every day, if you keep your weight down, if you're on a vegetarian diet, you're not apt to get diabetes. Non-vegetarians have 3.2 times greater risk of diabetes being on their death certificate. Okay. The evidence is so good in favor of the vegetarian diet. The only question is, why do more governments and official scientists tell us it's good? Now, in 2015, there were about 50 scientists asked by the government, Department of Agriculture, Department of Health, to say for the last years what changes have come, what shall we tell the people today? This time they said, tell everybody vegetarian diet is an optimum diet. When they got to the top of the Department of Agriculture and Health, they rebelled. They added plus lean meats. The doctors plus lean meats, it's a good diet. But the scientists who made the recommendation didn't say that. They said the vegetarian diet is a good diet. Is it adequate? Well, it was about, 2010 or something when an Adventist wrote the report for the American Dietetic Association showing it's adequate for vegans and everybody. The vegetarian diet is adequate.
Which the newest term is what, plant-based diet, right?
I don't like the term plant-based. That means I can have rice with a little chicken in it. That's plant-based. See what I mean?
Good point.
I don't like that term. I like the term vegetarian better. That's better than plant-based. Plant-based means Japanese sukiyaki with a little rice and some beef in it. That's plant-based. So it's a matter of terminology, what we mean by it.
When you say exercise, how much exercise should you get?
How much exercise should you do? Let me tell you. Hawaii, they did a study. People who walk 2 or more miles a day compared to 1 or less. Those who did 2 or more miles a day had half the death rate compared to the other group. That's tremendous difference. That's 1 hour exercise every day. That's what we're talking about.
Could you talk about how important water we need to be drinking?
You should understand the principle. Too little is bad, and too much is bad. Exercise. Too little is bad. Too much is just the same in death rate as those who don't do anything. That's hard to believe.
I know when we get
Water the same way.
when we get older, we drink less water.
Yeah. See, water you can get too much of. For example, the marathon runners in Boston. Here, this computer expert, never done a marathon before. He wanted to do a marathon. He read in the paper it's going to be hot. So he drank about a gallon of water before he went out. And every time they'd hand him water, he'd drink more. He cut so he couldn't walk anymore. He had diarrhea. He managed to finish the line, over the line, 26-mile thing. He went into the first aid tent. And since he could walk in, they felt he's okay. He went home up to his 4th floor apartment. He thought he was feeling bad. He thought he'd drink some more water because it must be dehydration. He drank more. He jumped up and crashed in a coma. They helicoptered him to the hospital. They thought he must be dehydrated. They gave him IV saline. He had low blood sodium because of too much water. I thought it only happened to marathoners. Now, because of this, they've spaced further apart the runners when they give them water. That's how they handle that. But I thought it was only marathon runners. I was sick, but I had already ordered for me blood chemistries. So those 3 days I was in bed, I knew I had to drink some water. I drank 8 or 9 cups. When I had my chemistries done, my blood sodium was low. My secretary, my clerk in the TB unit, public health unit, for so many years, she emailed me. She said her doctor said her blood sodium was low. How many potato chips do I need to eat? I didn't know anything about her health habits. I emailed back to her, it's not potato chips you need to cut down on liquid. How much liquid are you getting? She said, I'm drinking about 10 cups of water a day. I know I should drink lots of water. So she was. That's besides soda pops, beside her tea and her coffee. I said, cut some of that liquid out. Yeah, see? Cut some of that stuff out. And she did, and her blood sodium was okay. So I would like to do a study in Europe. Everybody over there eats soup every day. They get a lot of liquid. I'd like to know if there's more people with low blood sodiums. But so too little water, too much is bad. Too little exercise is bad. For every hour you exercise, you live 3 hours longer. See? Protein. Exercise people are telling you get more protein. You take any one of these gyms, you go into the gym, come out, you see a big line of foods, high protein, high protein, high protein. They want to build muscle. And your animal protein, it's the stuff's absorbed kind of rapidly from it, But the kidney specialists have agreed that if everybody had a lower protein diet, we could lower our kidney disease death rate 32%. 1 out of 7 Americans has problem with chronic kidney disease. 1 out of 7. They should be vegetarians. And the exercise specialists should not try to use diet to increase their muscle. Have them exercise to increase their muscle, not diet.
What about, for protein with I've been putting black cheese seeds into my smoothies. There, a friend of mine said that he wasn't sure if he heard you said it wasn't that good for you for the black chia seed.
Yeah.
But I thought omega-3s and it has protein and it helps with your muscles.
Any more questions any of you folks have? Yes.
Is there a relationship, I've heard that there was a relationship between dehydration and caffeine.
The relation between dehydration and caffeine?
Yes.
Well, caffeine is a big problem. They have some studies that say it's very useful. Decreases you from getting diabetes. But the Diabetic Association doesn't even agree to it yet because it's such a short-term study. It has to be a long-term study. So we don't have enough studies on it. In our School of Public Health, Dr. Harding had the attic as his lab for spiders. He saw what kind of webs they made. With caffeine, the webs all messed up. Now with chocolate, it was messed up too. And Dr. Harding, I think liked chocolate. He said, I think it's a different problem. He didn't think that chocolate had much caffeine in it. He thinks it's a different problem. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about how to stay healthy mentally? Like many people have now anxiety, depression, being very down, especially after the COVID. What would you do to be healthy mentally, sharp mentally? Like,
What do you do about depression?
yes, depression, anxiety, and mental health.
Well, I'll tell you what I've been saying about that. I have a friend of mine, taught me pharmacology. I met his grandson the other day. He's always depressed, became alcoholic. He was always depressed. I didn't talk against him for depression. I said, Tad, when I wake up in the morning, I am so excited as to who the Lord's going to bring to me that I can help today. I just try to get him to get his mind off himself and help other people get his mind on that, and he would be happier. Oh, get rid of his depression. That's what I was trying to do. And with me, it's true. I'm so amazed every morning who the Lord brings to me that I can help. He's done it so many times. So I think to have some goals like this in life helps you to keep you from getting depressed. You have goals to do something worthwhile for somebody else. Yes?
I think my mom told me to ask you, is there something you regularly eat for breakfast, or do you have a routine on how you eat?
Breakfast should be the best meal of the day. So good that sometimes I have it twice a day. But anyway, I don't eat the same thing every day. Cooked breakfasts are good. Cooked oatmeal, cooked rice, and so on. But there's dry cereals you can have, but don't buy the granola outside. They add 20% sugar to it. Make your own without the sugar. I like scrambled tofu, like scrambled eggs. I like Zwieback, peanut butter on top with thickened grape juice from a little cornstarch. I just love that for breakfast. Now, Chinese cooking, wok cookery for breakfast is okay. I have about 7 breakfasts listed. My wife made this oatmeal waffle recipe, which has gone around the world. That's a good recipe. It's good food. Ordinary waffle is white flour, sugar on top, honey, But what she made was oatmeal waffle. Good. So the breakfast, I can tell you easier than I can lunch. There's a lot of good breakfasts I can tell you about. But lunch, I have a harder time. Now, I've been arguing with myself. Do I like potatoes better or rice better? I grew up in China. I've been saying rice for years. I'm back to potatoes now. But there's a problem with potatoes, Irish potatoes. They have a high glycemic index, like ice cream. Now, I have a dietetic friend, a lady, she doesn't eat potatoes anymore because of that. But I don't go by that science yet. That came from Canada, because every time they do it, they come up with a different number. Depends on what other foods are in the meal, depends on the method in which it was cooked. So I don't agree to that glycemic number meaning much yet. So I don't accept it. I still eat potatoes.
So you like white rice or brown rice?
Now, white rice or brown rice? We've always been, as health educators, saying brown rice is better. More vitamins and minerals. But it has 5 times more arsenic than white rice. Yeah. And they're worried about arsenic for kids' diets. So they're worried about that a little bit. They don't have any definite things say against it, but they're worried about it.
My wife, she's Filipino.
Yeah.
She eats a lot of fish and white rice.
Yeah, white rice.
A bunch of vegetables in with it.
Yeah.
That's the way she was raised.
Yeah. Yes.
Could you comment on coconut oil in comparison to some of the other oils? I know someone that.
Coconut oil is not good. It's saturated fat. See? And
But she says that it isn't absorbed the same.
see, we used to think it was a health food. But in Fiji Island, for example, they have lots of diabetes, lots of heart disease. They're big and fat in Fiji. And the only oil they use is coconut oil. So there's a problem there. With
There is no advantage to coconut oil.
what's that?
There is no advantage to coconut oil.
It's advantage when you're putting somebody on a ketosis diet. For example, little kids who have epileptic seizures, too many of them, they will give them a diet where the body operates on ketones rather than on glucose. That means 50 grams or less of carbohydrate with lots of fat, coconut is what they use for that.
Do you think it's when they heat it?
What's that?
Maybe they heat it too much?
It's not just because they heat it too much. It's already saturated. Heating is not going to make it any worse from that standpoint. No. But if you just use it occasionally, it's not going to hurt you. But if that's the only oil you use all year round, that's not good. See?
I don't use coconut oil only for granola, but he's the main one that eats the granola, but he's fine. I mean, I heat it too much. I have a question about
Yeah.
the B12.
Yeah.
Many years ago, a doctor told me that I cannot get intoxicated of too much vitamin B12, the numbers in the blood. But not too long ago, I took my dad to the doctor, and the doctor told my dad, don't have B12. That's not. What I understood is like it erases the A1C. What do you tell me?
No, B12 is okay. You can't get too much B12. Don't worry about that. My wife had leukemia. That means the cells are broken and the serum was loaded with B12. She had a doctor told her she needed more B12. He said it'll push the B12 into the cells where it needs to be. It doesn't do that. No, B12, you can't get too much. We have the best toilets in the world because they have the most vitamins excreted in the urine. But I would say, particularly overweight problem, I would say eating between meals is one of our big problems in this country, eating between meals. And a lot of women get their weight down normally if they just did nothing but change that one thing. Just don't eat between meals anymore. You see, there's too much at the end of the meal to save, too much to, anyway, it ends up the woman cleans up what's on the table by eating it and gets too fat. Yes?
Can you comment on melatonin? Is there a use for melatonin? Not sleeping well?
What's that?
Melatonin, is that something that you should or shouldn't take?
I'm against all pill taking as far as I can. I try to keep away from all pills, whether it's melatonin or what it is, ever it is. But it's Adventists. The big thing is we should become vegetarians. We aren't. A lot of us are not. We should be. That has unusual advantages, many advantages. And if we can persuade our people on that point, it would be good.
Yes, but do you have a question? Okay. Do you know what's the percentage of vegetarians in the United States among the Seventh-day Adventists?
I don't. Now, in general, 5 to 16%, 15% of the population in this country are vegetarian. Not very many. Adventists, we've been saying half and half. But that's scientific. That means if you eat meat once a week, you're still called a vegetarian. Scientifically. You see what I mean? So, whether you're eating or not, probably only a quarter of our Adventists are vegetarian.
Would you like to comment on eggs?
Eggs?
Yeah, frequency, how often?
Yes. Well, I have everything Sister White's written on eggs on my computer. And we don't have good scientific evidence enough on eggs to condemn it. It has more cholesterol than any other food. You know, eggs do. And I have studies to show increases ovarian cancer risk. I have studies like that. But you can't go by one study. You got to have big studies to learn anything. And to have big studies, you're spending millions of dollars. So we don't do it except on a very few items.
Isn't it better just to eat the egg white instead of egg yolk? The egg yolk is what contains your cholesterol, right?
Egg yolk is where the salt is, the sodium is. Egg white, or cholesterol is. So we've been saying eat the egg whites. My son does that, and we used to teach that all the time. We don't say that much anymore. We don't have really good evidence for or against eggs, scientifically, right now. Now, as far as total vegetarianism is concerned, we do have evidence that without enough calcium, milk, you have more rectal and intestinal cancer. But milk increases the risk of women's cancers, breast cancer, ovary cancer, uterine cancer. So we don't have enough numbers to be certain of where we are in some of those things. We don't have enough in either side.
What
too much salt or not enough salt, or not enough salt, or?
Yeah. Now, the Aboriginal people down there in the basin, that big Ganges River basin, they don't use any salt. Maybe they get 1 gram a day, and that's all. And they never have hypertension. We know if you lower your salt enough, you won't get high blood pressure. So there were people cutting out salt. But there's an argument against no salt at all. And it's hard to get it down to where the scientists say we should get it down. So public health-wise, we think it's a waste of time to talk about lowering salt intake. We can't get people to do it far enough to do any good. But instead of a teaspoon of salt a day, we should cut it at least down to 1/2 of that. But if you eat bread as usually made, it's got a lot of salt. It's got a lot more than you need. So we're having a hard time with the salt issue in this country. But there's other ways to handle the hypertension, like I mentioned. The fiber, the linoleic acid, the potassium. We need to do something about increasing those things to lower our blood pressure. Yes?
The dairy, one individual said he had prostate cancer.
Yes?
And the doctor said, get rid of the dairy, that's the problem.
Is what?
Get rid of the dairy, that's the problem with the men with the prostate.
Well, see, for all men, I recommend if they use milk, not to use more than 1 cup. Because of the calcium in there increases the prostate cancer risk. That's true. That's true.
So you recommend drinking cow's milk, 1 cup?
I don't recommend drinking cow's milk. I don't drink cow's milk. I use it on some food sometimes, but I don't drink it.
What are your thoughts on the use of spices and herbs? Spices and herbs, things like turmeric.
What about herbs?
Yeah, what about spices and herbs?
Okay. A lot of the herbs are good. Turmeric has a lot of good things about it. It's okay. Turmeric's okay. But it's interesting that the American Cancer Society recommends you not use multiple vitamin supplements. Because we tried with the beta-carotene and the lung cancer people, and they developed more lung cancer and died sooner. And we're worried, unless we have good studies, to recommend supplements. So the American Cancer Society says, don't take supplements hoping to lower your cancer risk.
So with turmeric, you gotta be careful you're getting it that's grown in a clean environment. You want to get stuff that's organic and you know where it comes from. Otherwise, you can get like lead and other chemicals, high levels of lead.
Now, organic versus non-organic foods. Let's talk about that a minute. Most of the studies have been small studies. The large studies show there's no difference. For example, there's a man, we call him short, we call him Stub Maynard. He worked up to the point of being the agricultural specialist for the New York State of Agriculture. He was going to prove that organic gardening was better. So he got soil. This he planted was organic, that was not, all different kinds of crops. I had him come out to my facility to talk about it. He was very disappointed in the results. He couldn't find any difference. Now, what about, let's see, what else? Yes?
I have a question, if you finished your topic. Is there a difference between sugar and honey?
Honey and sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah, honey, sugar.
Oh, honey.
You see, when it gets in the intestines, the fructose, the sucrose, for example, divides into two parts, glucose and fructose. Okay? So honey, when it gets in the intestine, you can call it sugar. Same. It's same. It's not much different. We like to think honey's better. You know, we like to think it's natural, so it must be better. But we don't really have any good evidence on that. But Adventists, we got to get them off their coffee. We got to get them off their meat. The spirit of prophecy is very clear. Science is very clear. We got to be persuasive to the people, help them on those 2 points, particularly. Yes.
Can you talk about allergies? Many people seem to have different allergies. Is that possible? They get this from foods?
No, I didn't get what he's saying. Food allergies. If you take a little bit of the thing you're allergic to over a long period of time, you can get over it, most of them. I had a minister, friend of mine in Philippines. They have all kinds of bananas. He loved bananas. He was allergic to them. So I told him how to get over it. Eat a little piece of banana every day, and then increase it. But he did it too fast. Before I was even out of there, 3 months later, he was over his allergy, and he could eat any kind of banana there was. Or drink goat's milk. It's eating all those kinds of things, has all that allergy there, and it's oftentimes you aren't allergic to it after you use the goat's milk.
Do you have any thoughts on a diet without any animal products at all?
Total vegetarian diet.
Without animal products, no cheese, no eggs.
Yeah, that's total vegetarian. Meat without any animal products. Yes, we have to worry about B12. They got to get B12 by pill. And I think we should be worried about calcium also. For example, the total vegetarians have 30% higher fracture rate of their bones. But if they get 525 milligrams of calcium a day, they have no increase in fracture risk. And that means if you don't use any milk at all, you get about 250 milligrams of calcium a day. One additional cup of milk or substitute milk that's been fortified with calcium would give you 550 milligrams. You'd get enough calcium. But another way to get calcium, cut your salt intake in half. Because when you excrete salt, you're taking calcium out with it. You cut your salt intake in half, it would be like taking a calcium pill with 900 milligrams every day. The second thing is your blood level. Make sure your blood D level is right. If your blood D level is adequate, you absorb 2 to 3 times more calcium. So that's important. Next, don't count the calcium as meeting your calcium needs from foods that have high oxalic acid or have high phytic acid, because it forms insoluble salts. Calcium oxalate, you can't absorb it, like spinach, like American cabbage. You skip American cabbage and go to bok choy, it doesn't have the oxalic acid. See? So there's things we can do to help the calcium situation to make sure total vegetarians without any milk or eggs can get enough calcium. Yes?
I don't know what to say, Dr. Scharffenberg. I'm 6 years old over, and I think I need to go home. So I don't want to take advantage of. I can't believe that 100 years old.
Yes.
I just can't believe it. So, if there are any more questions, this is the time to ask. Let's take one more or two, and then probably we'll wrap up. So.
How about gluten? Many people have gluten intolerance.
I can't hear him.
What do you think of gluten intolerance?
Okay. I was raised on gluten. I grew up in China. They've had it for thousands of years. Most people who think they're gluten intolerant are really not. They need to do a test. For celiac disease, they need to do a test. I did a test. I went to a gastroenterologist, but he's now moved to Loma Linda, head of the gastroenterology department. Dr. Chang, up in Grass Valley. But he's moved to there. But he did all kinds of tests on me. Couldn't find any problem with allergies. So it's kind of a fad to say I'm allergic to gluten. I don't eat any gluten. It's kind of a faddish thing to do now, modern. If you're modern, you say that. But they haven't done the test to really see if they are.
Do you speak Chinese?
Eat in. My dad knew I knew where his exams were for Chinese, so he had to give me a different exam. He sat me in his office across from his desk, had me read the first 10 chapters in John in Chinese to him. Tai Tzu Yu Dao, Dao Yu Shan Di Tong Zai, Dao Zhu Shi Shan Di, John 1:1.
Dr. Scharffenberg, we thank you very much for visiting with us. And I hope you've been greatly blessed by Dr. Scharffenberg's visit. And shall we pray for Dr. Scharffenberg?
Yes.
Who would like to pray for Dr. Scharffenberg before we go home tonight? Andrew?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for what we've heard today. We just pray a special blessing on Dr. Scharffenberg, that you might continue to give him wisdom and influence to share your love with others and to provide that health message with the gospel. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Dr. Scharffenberg, on behalf of Middletown Seventh-day Adventist Church, we thank you so much.
Thank you.
Don't go. One question before you take off.
No, you.
Andrew?
See her.
Don't take off.
Hi.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was good.
So, if you have
What is your name?
Esben Jen.
Jen?
Jen.
Yeah.
I was born in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong, 香港。